Hi, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and thank you for joining me today. In this week's Excel Meeting Scheduler Part 3, we are going to have the ability to send emails using accept and decline links so that the recipients click accept or click decline in an email, and then those statuses are automatically brought back into Excel when we click update attend status. And that's how it is. Just like that, we're also going to have the ability to add to Outlook on the click of a button. And we're going to add in the ability to print a meeting agenda simply on single click, just like that. So it's going to be an amazing training. I can't wait to show it to you. So let's get started. Alrighty, welcome back. This is part 3 of the Excel meeting schedule, and I'm really glad to show you the newest features. If you're catching this and you haven't seen part 1 or part 2, I'll make sure to include those links into the description below. So you want to catch these first because we've got so much to cover in this part 3. We don't have a chance to go back to part 1 and part 2 to cover those. So we're just going to be moving right along here. In fact, we had so much to cover in the meeting scheduler part 2. We left out 2 very important email automations for part 3. So we're going to cover those right now. Now, if you remember, in part 2, we covered the first 5 meeting email automations, in which we covered the new meeting change, the attendee added, as well as the attendee status change, and the meeting status change. However, we left 2 very important ones out for this training, and we're going to go over those in detail right now. And those include the email automation send after meeting, in which the users have the ability to select a number as well as the duration, whether it's hours or days, so we could send an email automatically, let's say 12 hours after a specific meeting, or perhaps maybe 4 days after a meeting. So there's really a lot of flexibility as well, and then we just save those updates anytime we make a change. And we also have the ability to send an email automatically before a specific meeting. So if we want to remind, perhaps let's say 1 day before a meeting, we want to remind all the attendees, we just have to click a number as well as the duration and then click the save and changes. And automatically it's going to email based on whatever subject and message you have here, along with all of the variables that we've included here in a list, the ability to send each individual attendee a customized email based on those variables. And we're going to go over that as well. And we've also added in 2 different variables that we did not have in part 2, and that is the accept link and decline link. And what this does is it'll put an accept or decline when we create an email, and that looks something like this. It allows the users to either accept by clicking on a link if they want to accept that they're going to be able to make the meeting, or decline if they can't make the meeting. All they need to do is click one of these links in the email that they receive, and then automatically whatever status they have clicked will make it back into an Excel. And I'm going to show you exactly how we did that a little bit later on. But right now, let's get to some business at hand, and that is how to create these automated emails based on a specific time. And to do that, we've created an email log, and we'll go over this. This is a sheet. You may have already seen it because it was in part 2, yet I had not had a chance to explain it yet. And basically, this is a table that contains all of the emails for both send before and send after, because these are set on a specific time, not on a specific action. So we want to create a log based on these. And this contains the meeting ID, a trigger, and that's going to be send before or send after. You may want to add additional triggers to that, so this email log is perfect if you want to expand on that. We do have a meeting name as well as a meeting date and start time. And then we have a send on, and this is automated, this send on, when it's created based on the send before. For example, let's say the last one. We had send before, and this was going to be send before. I think we had this 4 hours before. So if our meeting date and meeting time is August 18th at 12:45 p.m. and we're going to send before, then our duration was probably set to 4 hours before, so we have it 8:45. So when this was created, 4 hours before, and send after 8:18 at 12:45, but it's 8:27 at 12:45. So this looks like we had set up for 9 days after. So based on the settings, these are going to get created. We also have a sent and when it was sent. So if it does get sent, it's going to be, we're going to add the date and time here. And the reason we do that is because we want to, one, we want to know when it was sent, and two, we want to make sure not to send duplicates, so we have to mark it. So this column serves two purposes. One, it tells us that an email was sent, and two, it tells us when, what time, and what date the email was sent. And then the row, this we'll use in advanced filtering. This is just basically lets us know what row it is. Now we always know what row it is. However, when it's brought back into an advanced filter, we don't know what row it is. So if we're working in an advanced filter, and I'll show you how to do this in just a little bit, we need to know what the original row is. So that's why this is where this row comes important. For example, let's say we send this email. I need to know when to send the email. I need to know when to put the date, and I need to know where to put the time. And because of this, I know it's row 18. So I can go to row, I know it's column J that we're going to put it, and I know we're going to put it in column 18. And so I know exactly where to put that email sent date and time right here, because that is the location. So having that row available to us in the advanced filter results tells us exactly where to put it. So that's really important. We'll go over that in a little bit of detail. Okay, so now you have the table structure, and now we know. So basically what we want to do in the macros is, what I want to do is I want to do this. I want to, every time we save a meeting, I want to check if it's here, if we have that. If it's here, update the row. If it's not here, add a row. So that, and I want to do it twice. If, and this is a big if the email automation has been set. For example, send after meeting and send before meeting. Both of those are, the email is active true, right? So in this case, for every new meeting we create, we are going to create an email automation. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll walk you through it. Let's go ahead and create a new meeting, and we'll call it Fred's birthday. Okay, and we'll give it a start time of 6 p.m. and we'll give it a location at Dave's Cafe. Okay, so we've got a meeting date, and then we'll set this meeting date on, let's say, the 12th of August. Okay, so the 12th of August, and let's go ahead and let's give it the 19th of August. All right, so we've set the 19th of August, and the duration of, we'll give it 2 hours. Birthday bash. Okay, so, and we'll give it an attendees. Let's say we want to bring in all of the technicians, and we want the entire HR department. So now we've added 6 different people. Probably shouldn't have done that. I'm just going to create too many emails. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. Now what it's going to do is going to create 2 different emails for those 2 people, John and Nina. Okay, so we've got both those emails, and we'll go ahead and click accept on both of them. So we'll click that link, and I'll show you how that works, and we'll go ahead and click accept. Okay, so now we've accepted those, assuming that they were to receive those emails, and they would click accept. And so we're done with the email portion. So now we've created these 2 meetings. Now, here, let's go back into our email automation. So because we have send after meeting 4 days, and we have send before 1 day before. So those are the current settings, and they're both true. So let's look back in the email log and see the email. Now these are the 2 new email logs that just got created, and you can see it's Fred's birthday, and we have send after. It's going to be 1 day after, or 4 days after. So 4 days after, we're going to send an email. It's automatically scheduled for August 23rd at 6 p.m. 4 days after. And we also have one we want to send before August 19th. And let's go ahead and format that as a time. All right. So now we've got that formatted as a time. And so now we see it's 6 o'clock p.m. and we have 1800. Let's go ahead and make sure we format all of those so that they're all consistently formatted. And we can do that simply by choosing date and time under the more normal formats. And under the time, we can choose, let's go ahead and take a look at this one here. We'll go with that. Make sure, so now the entire column is formatted properly. So now we have that. We can do the same. Actually, we should do the same thing for this one here. And this is the format that we're using, more number formats. And we'll click on the time. And we're going to use this one. You would set your formats to exactly what you want, what you like. Okay, so now we're set. So now August 19th, and so one day before, August 18th at 6 p.m. And I'll show you how we did that in VBA. So now we're scheduled. So now what I'm going to do within VBA is what I want to do is I want to create a filter. And I want to create a filter for everything that is blank, where email sent is blank. So that means every single email log in which the email has not been sent. And we can use those simply by putting an email in within VBA, and that's going to tell us everything that was sent. Then what I want to do is I have them all, but I want to sort them. I want to sort them automatically based on date. So from the earliest, August 13th, to the latest, September 7th, because I want to know the next one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a macro based on this date and this time. And that macro is going to be automatically create that email. So for example, this will go out on August 13th at 6 p.m. And let me show you how that will work in VBA. So let's go back into the VBA editor, and we're going to start out with the meeting saved. And let's go ahead and take a look at that. Meeting save and update. And you've seen this macro before, but I've added a few additional lines of code here. So we can see here, check for send after and before meeting if sheet 5 D26 equals true. Why D26 and why D27? That is the active for both of those. Let me just refresh here. Email automation, D26, D27. D26, this has to be true for this particular email active. If we were to unselect email active, then save those changes, this would become false. But we want to check if this email automation is active, then send after meeting 4 days after. If this is true, then send this email. So if both of those are true, we're going to send both. So that's why we need to run that check. So if sheet 5 D26 is true, then send after meeting. Run this macro. If D27 equals true, then send before meeting. We're going to go in those two macros. And after that's two macros, I'm going to run this macro, email schedule sent. So those are the three lines we're going to focus on right now. Let's take a look at these two macros, email send after meeting and email send before meeting. Those are going to help form our macros in order to send those emails at a specific time. Both of those can be found in the module email set type. So let's take a look at that. And the first of which we'll go with email send before meeting. So we want to take a look at this one. We're going to dimension email log row and email and last log row is long and the meeting ID is string. And the idea, basically what we want to do is we're going to be working primarily with sheet 8, that is the email log located here. And what I want to do is I want to run an advanced filter and I want to return all of the log items that do not have an email sent. And we can do that by adding equals here. And then what I'm going to do is sort them based on the send on so that the earliest or soonest is going to be here at the top and the latest is going to be here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through them all of them. Any of these that might be before the current date and time, I'm going to return and send that email right away. And the next one, the one that's not before but perhaps later with its 1 hour or 1 day, we're going to schedule a macro based on that date and time. And that's what we're going to do within VBA. So let's go back into the code and see how we go about doing that. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get the last log row. I want to do the last log row. And but first, before I do that, I want to determine if that meeting has already been added to the log. So we're going to run an advanced filter. The first one we're going to run is just to see if it's been added before. So we want to add two items to our advanced filter. We want to add the meeting ID and we want to add the send before. But before we do that, we need to clear contents of our advanced filter. So what we're going to be doing is clearing this information right here, these cells right here, AA2 through AH2. We're going to clear that out. And we're going to clear any results, because before we get those, we need to know if there's been a specific meeting. So what I want to do is I want to put the meeting ID here, and I want to put send before or send after here, and I want to see if there's any results. If no results come up, then I know to add this. I know it's new, and to add it right here. However, if there are results, if there is something that does get returned, I'm going to pull whatever row is here, and I'm going to use that as the row. So I need to get the row, and I need to know if it's been added or not. We're going to use an advanced filter to determine that. So AA2 will equal our meeting ID. In this case, we're focused on the send before. So AB2 is going to be send before, meaning these are our two criteria for our advanced filter. Next, we're going to run the advanced filter. We're going to run it from D5 through K in the last log row. That is our original data located in the logs. D5 must always include the header. All the way to K in the last row. In this case, the last row is 39. But we've already defined that in a variable, so we can run our advanced filter. Okay, next up, after we've run our advanced filter, we're going to use this criteria. We're going to copy to AA3, and the unique is true. So all those things is part of our advanced filter. And now we basically need to know if there's any results, then it already exists. If there's not, then add a new. So if AA4 does not equal empty, then existing ID is found. In other words, if this right here is not empty, that means that we have already added this specific automation for this meeting and for this trigger, right? Because there's two results, meeting ID 25 and trigger. So if that returns true, it's an existing meeting. Let's go ahead and show you what that means. I'm going to put a stop in the code just so we can see an existing code. Let's go ahead and take a look. Here we'll put a pause in the code right here, and let's go ahead and run it. We'll update an existing meeting, and so we can see how that works from this point on. So we'll just click Save Changes, and that's going to stop our code right here at end if. Let's go into the email log, and we'll slide over here, and you see what that looks like. The meeting ID, we just need to, that's not a date, we'll make it general. Okay, so the meeting ID is 33 and send before. So these are the two criteria, and that means yes, it did find one. Okay, so it found one, it exists, so we know it's on row 39. So we know where it is. So we know when we're going to update row 39, when we make any updates, we're going to update this row. If it was not found, if it's a new meeting, then we would add the new row. All right, so we'll go ahead and continue this macro, let that run out and pull that stop. We're done with that now. And we are good. So basically what we're saying, if it's found, email log row is AH4. That was our number right here. That was right here, AH4. That is our log row. If it's not found, we need to go to the last row and add one more. In this case, it would be 40. So that is how when we're adding a new value, that is how we find the last one. If it exists, replace the existing one. If it doesn't exist, add a new one here. So, and all we need to do is focus on that email log row. In the case of an existing, it's going to be AH4. In the case if it's not found, it's going to be new. So the email log row is sheet 8, D, end out the last row plus 1. That's the first available row. So once we have either existing, then everything else is the same, whether it's new or existing. Then we can add in our meeting ID. Then we can add in our send before, our trigger. Then we can add in our meeting name, which is sheet 1 M5, our date, sheet 1 P5, that's the meeting, and sheet 1 our start time. Those are all of the values that are found on sheet 1 on our meeting schedule. So that's basically meeting date here and the meeting time here and all the information here and the duration here as well. So we're adding that in as well, so we can add that in directly from sheet 1. So then sheet D25, then we have to figure out, okay, if in our email log, now we need to set the last item in our row. We need to know email automation, email log. I need to know when to set the send on, right? And it's based on days or hours, and it's based here. Is it 1 day? Is it 4 hours? So we need to take this information. For example, we're focused on send before, which is row 27. So 1 day, 1 day. So those are our values. So F 27 equals 1. G27 equals days. So let's focus on that right now. If sheet 5 G27 equals days, then do this. Then the log row EI in the email log row equals, remember here, email log row I. We're adding this information in right here. I need to pull this. Basically, if it's August 19th at 6 p.m. and we're sending before and it's one day before, I need to make sure that this says August 18th at 6 p.m. So basically, all we're doing is subtracting a day. Equals sheet 1 P5, that is the scheduled meeting date, minus F27. F27 is the number 1, right? Because we're focused on days. F27 is the number of days plus the time, plus the start time. So the start time and the meeting date are both on the meeting, and all I'm doing is subtracting 1 day. So that's pretty simple when it's days. But what about when it's hours? Okay, if it's hours, if G27 does not equal days, in that case it equals hours. In that case, I email equals sheet 1, which is the start date, plus the start time, minus the number minus 24 divided by 24. Why is that? For example, every day we know is 1. 12 hours is 0.5. 6 hours is 0.25. So we need to divide that by 24 to get the decimal in which to subtract from. So for example, if we want to send something 12 hours before, let's say this would be 12 divided by 24, which is 0.5. So that means we're going to subtract a half a day, 0.5, which is 12 hours. So when we do that, when we take that subtraction, automatically that becomes 12 hours less. So the start date plus the start time minus the number of hours. And to get the number of hours, all we do is divide the number divided by 24. So that's how we get the number of hours, and that's how we do the subtraction. All right, we're good. The last thing, we just want to add in the row to the database row. So we're just adding in that row, and that's going to help us when we run the advanced filter to determine the row. We're just going to add in that formula right here, a row. So that is all we do. So now we've added this item in the log row, and so we're good to go on that. Let's focus on the next one. So we've done that, and now the send after meeting everything is pretty much identical here as well. Identical. The only difference is this formula here. Send after days, the only thing we do run a filter, the send after meeting. We change that filter because we want to find if it exists, but we're using send after, the same meeting ID and send after. So that is different because we're looking for send after, because for every meeting we could have 2, right? We can't just filter by meeting ID because there could be 2. There's one send after and one send before possibly. So I can't only filter by meeting. I need to filter by meeting ID and this. This makes it unique. These two make it unique. So we need to do both of those when we run our advanced filter to find that it exists. And then again, we add all of our meeting information, and then instead of the math just changes. If it's days, right, when we send after, we're going to be adding the date plus the number of days plus the time. So again, it's on start date plus days plus the time because it's send after. And if it's hours, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. We're going to start date plus the time plus hours divided by 24. Here we did minus number of hours. So it's pretty simple there. Number of hours divided by 24, but we're just adding. And then the above one, we subtracted. So that's the only difference there. And that's how we get the exact date and time that we need to send it on. So now you know how we are going to send it, right? How we set the time to send it, but you don't know how we're going to send it. So let's focus on that next. Okay, back into the save meeting, and let's go ahead and take a look at that. And you'll notice we just covered these 2 macros in this email send after, and now we have another new macro, email schedule send. Email schedule send. Let's take a look at that. Now we're going to run this automatically on every single save, so let's take a look at that and see what happens here. We've dimensioned last log row, email log row, last log filter row, and log filter row as long. Next up with sheet 8, again, we're going to be focused here on the email log. We're going to run another advanced filter, and this is the one that I spoke of before, in which we actually add the equals in there. We're going to be adding an equals here, and we want to know all of the logs that have not been sent. So this time we're going to run a different type of advanced filter where we put only an equals here, and that's going to be equals 0. So that means every log that has a blank in the email sent will show up here. Let's take a look at what that would look like when we run the macro. Clicking run, and we'll go ahead and take a look at that. Back in here you'll see equals, and now we have returned every single macro that has not have an email sent. And we'll see how that works. So again, we're going to clear our previous advanced filters and results just like we did always. AA2 through AH2, clearing those previous criteria. AA4 through AH999, clearing those previous results. Clearing that, getting ready for a new. Next, we're going to set the criteria. You just saw that. AG2 equals, and then just the equal sign. And that's how we set the criteria for all blank emails sent. All the blank emails sent. So we want to know everything in which that has not been sent yet. The last log row, again, we're going to get that D all the way up for our main content, our main data there. And XLF will give us the last log row. We're ready to run our advanced filter. The advanced filter is going to be exactly like the last one, except we have different criteria now. D5K in the last row, advanced filter. We're going to copy that. And then we're going to do the criteria range. AA1, same range, except now we have an equals there. AA1 through AH2. We're going to copy that all the way to AA3 to AH3. So we're just copying it right below. And then we do want the unique is true. We're going to have the last log filter. Now we need the last log filter row. I need to check to make sure there is data. If there is not data, we're going to go to no emails. That means if there is no results here, we're checking the last row. If this last row is less than 4, that means there's no data here. So we can skip everything else. So just want to make sure there actually is data there. So we're going to return that. That is why we do that. And next up, what I want to do is I want to sort them. I want to sort all of them so the earliest is here and the latest is here. So with the next line of code, we're going to sort that data. And we do that by first clearing any existing sorts with sheet A. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use sort fields and add a key. That key is going to be AF3. That is the column we're focused on sorting. We're going to sort just based on the values, and we want ascending, earliest to the latest, sorting normal. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run our sort. We're going to set our range to the sort as AA4, that is the first data row, to AH and the last log filter. So we're going to sort that. We're going to apply that sort. So once we do that, everything's going to be in this order. See it now, it's in order from the earliest, August 13th, 6 p.m., all the way to the latest. I want to sort it so I know which one must be sent. So that's why we run. I need to know which order they need to be sent on. Next up, we're going to set the log filter row to 4. That's the one we're going to be focusing on, just the first one. And sometimes we want to run loops, but for now we'll leave it at 4. It's going to be inconsistent. But if you want to run a loop through the data, you can. So that's why I've kept this as a variable. So B7 value equals set, meaning AA in the log row, which is 4, a 4 value. I want to set that. Why do I want to set that? Because we're going to need these later. The first one, I need to know the meeting ID, I need to know the trigger, and I need to know the send on. So we're going to put those values right here. I need the meeting ID, the send log, and I need the log row. So actually just the log row. Once we have the log row, I know any other information here. So we're going to capture those 3 items, and I'm going to put them right here. And so that's when we run the email, I know automatically all the information to get. I know the trigger, and I know the meeting ID, and I know to know the log row. So we're good there. The reason we need to know the log row is because as soon as this email gets sent, we're going to put the sent on in J, and the log row. I need to know what log row it is, so I need to know what column and what row to put that sent date and time. That's why we need the log row. All right, so next up in our code, we have all of our information in B7, 8, and 9. So we've set that up. So when we run our advanced filter, we're good. Next up, we need to run a test. And what I want to basically run is I want to say if, let's go ahead and look at those results. If this value is less than the current time, then we better send that email right now. We're kind of late, right? But if it's after the current time, date and time, then just schedule it. So we're going to do that with the if statement that we're going to come. We're going to say if AF and the log _row value is less than now, then it's in the past. Then we better send schedule right now. We're going to run this macro right now. Else, if it's not, this is the key. If it's not, then schedule to run later. Application on time. What are we going to do? What is the time? Here's the time. AF and this is our time. AF, the log filter row. What are we going to do at that time? We're going to run this macro at this time. So this is the key. That's how we do it. And then automatically. And the idea is, let's say this macro is not set to run for 2 days, right? Maybe it's not running, but maybe you're going to close it, and that doesn't help. But the idea is to run this macro every time the workbook starts. So let's go ahead and click on workbook. Private sub workbook open. You need to uncomment if you're going to get this working. Uncomment this out, okay? I don't want it running. When you open the workbook, I don't want it to run. I don't want emails to send. So I've commented out. So it says uncomment this macro to check for scheduled emails. So that means that every time the workbook's open, it's going to check and send emails accordingly or schedule them. So, but right now I'm leaving it commented out. Make sure if you want this active, remove this comment, remove it, okay? But for now, I don't want this running. When you open your workbook, I don't want things to run, so it's probably not good. This is more for when you get it set up and everything is just the way you want it, then uncomment it out. Okay, so that is why we have there. Back into send schedule. So we went over that. So now we know schedule at a specific time and date right here, or send it right now. So let's focus on this macro right here. Email send schedule now, and that macro is right here. So now we're going to run this, and then we're going to set the email. We're going to run that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Send schedule now. The meeting ID and the trigger as a string. The meeting row and log row is long. The dimension, the last attendee row and the last attendee filter row, we're going to need to know that, and those are long. Let's set those as long and these as long as well. Okay, good. And the next one, we're going to set these also as long so that we can do that. So those are going to be too long because we're going to need to pull the last, I'm going to need to pull when we send the email, I need to know all the attachments. We're going to filter that, and we need to know as far as the attendees as well. So that's important. Dimension the meeting ID range and the found meeting, because we're going to need to find that meeting ID in a list. And the meeting ID range we're going to set to the sheet 6 and the meeting ID. We've already set this up as a named range in sheet 6. Meeting lists. Meeting list. Let's review. Meeting list. Meeting ID is a range. So when we go into formulas, name manager, and click on meeting ID, you'll see meeting ID here, tab over. We're going to see the meeting ID has already been set, all the meeting IDs. So what I want to do is when I want to locate whatever meeting ID and I want to know what row it's in. So we need to locate the row. So in this macro, we're going to locate that row using find. So next up, now what we're going to say is we have the trigger. We know now we're going to get this information we just added here. Now we're going to pull it because there are different macros. So now we're going to pull the meeting ID in B7, sheet 8, trigger is in B8, and log row is in B9. So we've just, basically all I did is I stored them in this macro, and I'm pulling them in this macro. So now we've defined those as variables, and now we've set those variables in these dimensions here. So next up, we need to find the meeting row. Found meeting row range equals meeting ID range. Find, what are we finding? We're finding the meeting ID. I need to know what row. We're going to use Excel values and Excel holes. This will find it. Find that meeting ID in the range of all the meeting IDs. This will check to see if it's been found. If not, found is nothing. When you see two negatives, those cancel each other out. That means it is found. It basically says if the meeting ID is found, then. So all this translates to is if the meeting ID has been found, then. And if it's not found, all the way in here in this else, we're going to set this, maybe sometimes we've deleted a meeting or for some reason, or we've turned it off. So we're just going to set the send on to. If the meeting ID is not found for some reason, it just sets this to NA. So every once in a while, you'll see an NA in here or in here. It just means that they were unable to find that meeting ID. Maybe the meeting was deleted or removed, but the log remained. So that can happen. So we'll just NA sometimes if you delete a meeting. All right, so that's why we set NA. But assuming it is found, then we're going to do the following. The first is we need to know the row. What is the row of that meeting? Well, it's been found in this range. So the row of this find is going to be that meeting row. Now we're ready to clear. We're going to run our advanced filter on sheet 5, which is the email automation. So we're going to clear the previous email fields on that. So now what we need to do is clear all the previous email fields on sheet 5. In the last training, sheet 2, we went over those. So let's take a look at those just so we know what fields those are. In the email automation, that is all the details for the email. And basically what we're doing is I'm going to clear all of this out. And these are for a specific email. So we have the meeting name, the scheduled date. So these are specific for each specific meeting. When we send out emails, we need to know what all this information is. Duration, locations, they're all specific for meetings. So we need to delete that so that we can put the information for the new meeting is. And we know that because now we have the meeting row. We know when we look in the meeting list, we know the row now. So once we know the row, we know everything which we need, including the meeting name, the date, the start time, because we know the row. So that's why it's important to get the row. Then we can determine the name, date, start time, duration, location, status, agenda, and all the information based on the row and the column. So now we have the row. So now that we have the row, we know that we can add in the meeting name, the date, start time, and all of this into B31 all the way through B39. So we're adding in those meeting details. We're going to get the attendees by using advanced filter. We're going to set the advanced filter in the attendees to pull all of the attendees. We did go over that in the last, but let's just take a quick look. Attendees database, so when we run it, all we're going to be doing is putting in a meeting ID here. I don't know why that always reverts to date. Put it in text, that'll keep it. Okay, so the meeting ID is 32, and it's going to say, okay, for that meeting ID, here are the attendees for that. An example, if there was any attachments, let's go ahead and change that to text as well, so it's not a date. So for 32, there's no attachments, so that's fine. But if there was attachments, there would be displayed here. So that's what those lines of code does. It puts the advanced filter and it gets all the attendees. It puts the advanced filter of the meeting and it gets all the attachments, if any. So that's what we do with that. That's the same as before. And next we run the macro send email. We went over that macro last time. You could find that macro email send here under send email. We're not going to go over that. We went over that last time. So now we have all the data. Now we run this macro and it sends all the emails to all the attendees accordingly. So that's how we do it. And next up, we need to say, okay, now we know that this email was sent. So we're going to update the log row. We know the log row and we know J is where the email sent, and that equals now. Now is the current date and current time. And what that does is it puts it right in here, right here. It puts that current date and current time in email sent. So that way it will never be sent for that again, because we need to make sure that we don't repeat sending for the same meeting. Next up, and that's it. And the next thing we do is important. We need to run this macro one more time, as many times as necessary, so we can schedule the next one. Now what it's going to do, it's going to run this advanced filter one more time. But of course, if we just sent this one, this is going to be full. So when we run this advanced filter again, only these are going to appear, and it's going to schedule this one, which is the next one. So it loops and loops and loops until all of the emails are sent, so it's a great little ability to send scheduled emails automatically at a specific date and time. So I wanted to show you that too. It is exactly the same for send before. So send after and send before, they just use the different parameters. So that is how we send those, and that's what we didn't get to last time. And now moving on to our newer features that we also have in this. If we click on our meeting schedule, we see that we have also added the ability to have automated accept and decline, and we're going to go over that right now. All right, in this feature, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to give the user the ability to click accept or decline when they receive emails from a meeting. So if we were to save changes to this meeting, and you'll see they get the changes, I want to be able to add in the ability for them to click a specific link when they receive these emails by putting the ability to have click accept or click decline. So all they need to do is click this, and automatically it's going to go to a link, and then automatically when they come back into Excel, when the manager comes back, all they have to do is update it, and that actual status will become automatic in that meeting. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And so that's what I want to do, and we're going to use our old friend Zapier to do that, and I'll show you just how we did that. So for now it's tentative, but when we click update status, the status changes to accepted just like that, simply because they clicked on the link. And so that's a really great tool, and I want to show you how we did that. Well, we use Zapier. Let's go ahead and take a look inside that link so we can see just how, if we take a look and we highlight over that, we'll look down, we'll look at it says hooks Zapier, so we're going to use Zapier. And what we want to do is I want to give them the ability to add a specific item meeting name and meeting unique ID, and so that when they click the link, we know exactly what meeting, exactly what attendee, and exactly what status. So there's two links here, and the only difference between these two links is the last part. It says status accepted, and if you click this link, it says status decline. The rest part of the link is the same. Let's go ahead and move that over again so you can see that. And there we go. So it says status decline. Now let's look at that. You've got your Zapier hook, and we've gone over this before. We'll go over it briefly. And then it says meeting ID equals 32 and ID name equals 32 underscore Harold Ramos and name Harold Ramos. So it's got a few different parts of it. We're going to go over those parts. But here's what we did. Let's go ahead and pull up Zapier, and we've done that before, but I wanted to go into it with you again so we can see exactly how we did that. So let's go ahead and go into Zapier, and we'll click on that, and let's go ahead, since I've already done it, let's go ahead and in our Zaps, and if you want to show you how to create a Zapier, we'll just click make a Zap. But basically what this does is I've created something called meeting automation, and it's called a webhook to Google Sheets. You can do that as well. Let's go ahead and look into the Zap so we can see exactly, and I'll bring the screen in so you can see all of it here. All right, so now we can see, let's take first the first part we did is we called catch a hook. And webhooks, we're adding this webhook, and we're going to catch the hook. And what we did is it gave us a hook, right? So we're going to continue that. And it gave us a hook, and it'll say, and we'll click continue, and let's look at this hook. So this first part of the hook here, we can view our hook, and it says accept Harold Ramos 27. So if you were to create a new hook, you could create a new hook, but we've already done this, and I've done a lot of, so I've created a webhook, and what I want to do is I want to give this information. So the webhook looks just like this. And what I've done is that I placed the webhook in our Excel file right here under Zapier webhook. So this is the webhook right here. This part is always going to be the same, and this part is different between the hooks. So if we were to create a new webhook, I'll show you how we would do that. We would go into the dashboard, make a Zap, and we're going to choose 100. So we'll click on webhooks here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to catch a hook. We always want to do that. Save and continue, and then it's going to give us a hook. So when you'll do that, you'll just continue. We won't pick off a child. And when you get this webhook right here, this is the webhook right here. This is what we're going to copy, and this is what we paste into Excel. I've already got my webhook, so I won't be pasting it. But this is what you want to paste right here. So that is the webhook. And the next part, it says, well, what do you want to do with it? You want to pick it off? And then so what we're going to do is we're going to test it off there. So let's go out of this. Let's go back to the dashboard. I've already created a webhook. So let's go ahead and focus on the one that I've created, the meeting automation. So then we're going to create a spreadsheet row. Now I've created a spreadsheet here in our Google Sheets. We've also been over this a few times before, so I'm going to move over it fast. But basically I've created a new sheet, a new Google Sheet, and I've just put a few headers in there. Here's the sheet that I created, and I've just added 4 headers in there. Meeting ID, ID and name, attendee name, and attendee status. So that's what I want to do. The next thing I do is I want to make sure to get this information into Excel. So I've done this, and we can do that under File, under Publish to the Web. And all I did is I made it public, and I've copied this link here. This is our publishing link. And I've pasted that right into Excel. So here is where it goes, right under Google Sheets link. So I've pasted this long link right in here because I need to bring that data in here. What I want to do is I want to take all of that data in Google Sheets and I want to bring it right into attendee status right here. I want to bring it right in here. That's all that we're doing. We do that with a macro, and I'll show you how that's done. But basically, the idea is, so what we're doing is every time a user clicks a link in an email, it's going to add a row to Google Sheets, and then Google Sheets is going to bring it right here and tell us that information. For example, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and take a look at our Google Sheets and see what we have. On this Google Sheets, we'll cancel out of that. We have the last row of 24, and it's 33 Nina Smith accepted. So let's add one more row, and we can do that just by clicking on a link in the email. So let's say we have Harold Ramos on this meeting on August 18th at 12:45. Let's say he declines. Okay, so we're going to click decline, and it's going to go to the hook, and it's going to add that hook. The ID, meeting ID is 32, the name, and I'll show you how we got that information into the link, of course, but I wanted to show you how that works. So once we have run that, we'll see it automatically just added this row here, meeting ID 32. We've combined the meeting ID along with their name. This helps us create a unique ID because the meeting IDs are not unique, the names are not unique, but the combination of the two is unique. So I need that unique row. I need that unique. And then the status, in this case, declined. We just click declined. So that adds it in there. Then when we run the macro on Excel, it's going to bring that into. So here we see it's not here yet, right? There's nothing here yet. But when we run the macro right here under the meeting schedule, click update attendee status. And now when we click attendee status, now we see Harold Ramos declined. Here it is right here. And what is this 148? This is a formula. This tells us what row the meeting ID is. It's going to take a look at match, attendee meeting ID name. It's going to look at that, and we've added this to the meeting ID attendees database here. We've added meeting ID name. This is how I can set their particular 148. Let's look at that. 148, Harold Ramos declined. What this does is it automatically changes their status. So when we click on meeting 32, automatically it's going to be declined. So let's take a look at that meeting. That was August 18th at 12:45 p.m. So when we look in the meeting schedule, slide over, August 18th, here it is. We'll see that Harold's been declined as well now. So you can see it pulls in the information. I know I'm moving fast, but it's so much to cover. I've probably added too much again. Let's go back to the Google Sheets and look how we have done that. What we've done is we've mapped it out here in Zapier. And let's go ahead and take a look at the Google Sheets here, this edit the template. And what I've done is once that hook gets run, we've created this is the sheet that it's looking for, meeting status sheet. This is the Google Sheet we've created. Once your Google Drive is connected, it'll find all the sheets. So meeting status sheet, that's the one. It's sheet 1. The meeting ID is going to be step 1. It found our meeting ID. Our ID and name is a combination of the ID underscore name. So we're going to put that there, the attendee name, and then the status accept. So that is how when we send that link, when we build that, send that link, it adds all this information and then it adds it into a row in Excel. So let's go ahead and take a look at that link. That link sends it. When we hover over accept, we see, let's look at the 4 items. We see meeting ID equals 32, ID underscore name equals 32 underscore Fred Fretters, and name equals Fred Fretters, and status equals accepted. This, of course, is almost the same, but except it says declined. So that way, when the new row gets added, everything's going to be the same except for the status. That way, that status comes automatically back into Excel. Now, let's go ahead and see how we created that link into our email send here. And let's take a look at the link here. And we have two new rows. One's called accept link and one's called decline link. And what I've done here is we're going to add in character 34, created a HTML, and that's important. These are quotation marks here. And then it's going to start out sheet 1 S6. What is S6? That is our Zapier webhook in S6. Let's take a look at that. S6, remember we're storing the first part of our webhook right here, S6. So that's the webhook. So it begins with the webhook, and next up we have to build out the webhook. So let's go ahead and see how that was built. Next up, question mark, meeting ID equals the meeting ID, and the and sign, ID underscore name equals the meeting ID plus the underscore, and then the attendee name. And the and sign, the name equals attendee. So we're building this link right here. Then, of course, the status, in this case, is accepted. In this case, it's declined. Why do we do that? And then this is what the user sees. When we build that HTML link, this is what the user sees. They don't see the whole link. They just see the words accept in large capitals. They just see the word decline in large capitals. So when we bring in that HTML, that is all that they see. They see this large accept. They see this large decline. So that is all that they're looking at. That's how we build it. We've also changed. So now what we did is we added two more replaces. We actually added three more. Two more replace, one for the accept link and one for the decline link. And those are right here. So if they put in decline link with the pound sign in the email template, then that gets replaced with the decline link. If they click accept, then accept. And this character 10 BR, what is that? What is that? Again, let's take a look at that. And what that means is then in our email automation, in our template, let's look at this. You see this is a new line, right? This is a new line. These are two different lines. What we're doing is we're telling Excel, when you see a new line like from here to there, replace that with BR. BR in HTML means new line. So basically that helps us create the emails. So when the emails are created, they're properly formatted just as you did the template. Just as you did. So each new line is proper using BR, because we're using these links, we need to change this into an HTML body. HTML body. So we've updated that. Now when we send the Outlook, now we see HTML body. We've changed it, not just body HTML, because we're using this link. So we need to change it to an HTML body because of this link, because we've added a link. So that is the updates that we've made to the email. So now in the email templates, whenever a user puts in something like this, if you are able to make this meeting, please click accept link, right? This gets replaced with the actual link. If you are unable to make the meeting, please click decline link. This gets replaced with the actual meeting. If you're able to make the meeting, please click accept. However, if you're unable to make the meeting, please click decline. So they click that. It goes to Google Zapier. It goes to Google Sheets. Google Sheets come back to Excel and our macro runs it. Let's go through that macro so we can see exactly how it's done. If we go into attendees macros here and look at that, you'll see we've done that. And all we're doing is it's going to create a link, a data connection between our link using Google Sheets using this macro. We've been over this macro before. All that macro does is it creates a data connection for our attendee status. And that data connection, if we click on data and we click on connections, we'll see that there's a data connection here. And then when we go into properties, we'll see a connection's been created using this link. And that's going to create that connection, which then brings all of that data from Google Sheets right in here. So that macro does just that. It brings all of that information in. We're going to first set S7. That's where we put our Google Sheets link. And if it's empty, of course, we're going to exit the sub. We're going to define the attendee status link in sheet 1, S7. Next up, we're going to clear the contents. We want to clear the contents of that so that when we bring in new data, everything is new. And then we're going to add the query tables, add this connection using the URL with this status link, destination sheet 9 A1, bringing in all that data right here. We're good. And next thing, that's pretty much simple. We're just going to, it brings in all that data and puts it there. We've been over that macro a few times. Next thing, we're going to run a macro called update attendee status. Let's go over this quick macro. We need to do is I need to bring in this status. I need to put in formula here. After we bring in all this data here, I need to put in this formula here, and I need to put it in only on the new rows. So we're going to put in this formula if error match, and what this is going to do is going to tell us what row this information this is on. It's going to look for this. And what is that? That is the attendees database. Basically, what I need to do is I need to say, okay, if this status is declined, find Harold Ramos, find meeting number 32 and Harold Ramos, find it, tell me what row it's on, and then update the status of that. So we look in the attendees database, it finds this and it updates whatever it updates their status. That way, when we reload the meeting, automatically the status gets refreshed. The status gets automatically refreshed there. So that is what we're going to do. We're going to add in that formula there. So for the last update row equals sheet 1 B1. What is that last step? That tells us every time we make an update, we need to update the last status row, because what I want to do is I don't want to go through all these rows again every time. I want to know only from the last time the update was made. For example, if the last update here was 25, I only want to run updates from here. So we record the last row and we put it right in here into B7, the last attendee update row, B7. So that way, because we only need to go from 27 all the way down to any new updates. So we're going to start at this row and go down and see and only update the new ones. This keeps us from getting it slowed up, so that's really helpful. So that's why we have to set the last row so we always know what row we're moving down from. The last status row equals sheet 9 B999. So this is going to get us the last row of our status right here, the last row. I need to also know what the last row is so we can work through. So I can see if the last update was 24 from the previous update and our current last row is 27, we need to know that we just run from 25 to 27. The last update to the last row. We're just going to run that and add in those formulas there. That's all I really want to do here. So we get the last status row, and it's going to say if the last status row equals the last update row, that means there's nothing new, so we can exit the sub. If there's no new data, we don't need to run all this. But if the last status row is less than the last update row, then the last status row equals 1. Last update plus 1. This just ensures, in case it's 1 up, that the last status row has been set correctly. The next step for each of those, what we just want to do is I want to add in from the last update row to the last status row. Let's go ahead and close this out. From the last update row, let's say it was 25, the last time we made up, to the last row, put in this formula. That's all I want to do is put in this formula right here for all of those rows. So if the last update was 25 and the last row is 27, add this formula in. That's all we're doing with this line of code right here. F and the last update row plus 1 and F and the last row, status row, the formula equals if error match C in the last, this puts that formula right in, plus 1 and the attendee meeting name 0, 3. So this is the match. We're going to match, and we're looking for that. And then 0, we want an exact match plus 3. Why do we add 3? Because our data starts in row 4, so we always need to add 3. So that provides this will get us the row. It'll get us the row using the match. C25, we're matching this. We're going to use the range attendee meeting name 0, we want an exact match and add 3. Let's look at this attendee meeting ID name. Let's just look at that range so we know what we're working with. In the formulas, name manager, attendee meeting ID name, tab that over and we'll look. And this is all of these. So basically it's this, all of this, we're going to match it all the way to the end. This is an offset, so it's going to go all the way in. So we're going to match it. We need to know where it's found and we need to get that row. So that's all we're doing with that. We're matching that, and we're adding 3 because it starts on 4. All right, so now we know the row, and now we know how to update it. So now we're good. Let's go back into this macro. Now we're saying we're going to calculate. I want to make sure all the formulas that we just did are calculated, And now we're going to say, okay, for status database row equals the last update row plus the 1. So we're going to start our loop because I want to run a loop. What I want to do here in this loop is, for let's say these 3 are new, right? For each of these new ones, this row, I want to look at this row and I want to make it accepted. So 149 of our attendee database, 149, I want to change this status right here. I want to change it for whatever is here. Obviously they're both accepted now because it's been updated. So every time I want to take this status in row 150 and I want to update this here. So we're just updating the status based on the row number. So we're going to run that loop and do it for all the new ones, and then we're going to set it up. So that's how we're doing it. So we're going to start our loop right here. Let's expand this a little bit. Let's move it out, tab it over a little bit so we can see it. If sheet 9F does not equal 0, we want to make sure it equals a value, then the attendee database row equals sheet 9F in the status database row. So we need to set that row because we know we need to know the row. Now we need to update the status with this line of code. E in the attendee database row equals E in the status row. What is that? Let's just take a quick look at that. Attendee database E, this equals this here. So basically it's replacing the status. So that way when we pull our meetings out, it'll use this status. So that's how we do that. We update the status of the actual database so that when we update, all the correct statuses come in automatically. So we need to update that database. That's why we do that. And then next up, we want to close our loop, and that's it. And the next up, we want to, in B1, we want to set our last status row. I want to set that last row so we know. I want to take this last row right here. Let's pull that up. The last, in this case, is 27, and I want to put that so that we know the next time we update, we know what the last one is. And I want to put it right here under meeting schedule in B1. The last attendee update row is 27. So we put it right there. So the next time we run the update, if there's 3 more rows, we know where to start from. We know where to start from. We don't need to start from the beginning. So that keeps track of the last update row. So that's how we handle that. And that's it. That's how we update those statuses. And the next thing on update, we want to load the meeting. We're just going to load the meeting because if there's been a change, I want to update. For example, if we make a change after we click, let's say this meeting, there's been a change. When we click update status, I want this meeting to reload. I want to run this macro that does that. So any changes in the statuses will automatically be updated. So that is that. All right. So that's how we create that. I know I'm moving quick, but we got 2 more features to cover in this extended training. We also have the print meeting agenda, and that's basically what we've done is I've created another range here called meeting agenda, and I've created formulas. These formulas are formulas to the original cells. All of it, including the attendee's name and the position, is the position of that particular staff, comes from a match formula, an index match formula from the original position of that staff. So we're looking for the staff list. We're going to find the staff and we're going to pull in their position from here using index match. So we've created that table, and then I've set the range on that. I've set a range so that we can add it. We allowed them to write in a meeting summary where all the staff is. We can put in the arrival time. We can print this off all the meeting, and all we need to do with that is click print meeting agenda, and that's going to preview it. And you don't necessarily need to preview it. We've done that with a very, very simple macro. Let's go ahead and take a look at that macro. Into the VBA we go. Into the schedule max we go. We've added another macro called print meeting, and all this does is sheet 1 print out true true, and these are individual variables, and you can see that when we click print out, you can see all the different options and variables here. So if you were to write a new code, let's take a look at this so we can see those ones. Sheet 1 print out, and then you see we have from and to, we have the number of copies, we have preview, and in my case I've done preview. So if you want to ignore it, you just click comma, comma, 2. We don't want copies. You could do 2 copies or 1 copies. Preview, in my case I've done true because I want you to see it, but you might want to put false. The active printer, which will default to the default printer, print to the file in which you could save it, collate, print to file name, and ignore print areas. And false, you could do false. So those are all the options in printout you have, and you can mark those true or false or as you see fit. But we're set up with that. Next up, we also have the send to Outlook, add to Outlook. We have the ability there so that when we click, we can add to Outlook meeting. Just by one click, we can add it to our Outlook. And I have specifically left the attendees blank because we already have a list of attendees. This basically puts it on your schedule. Now we could click send to individual attendees, but that kind of defeats the purpose, and it's also more complicated because you have to look up to see if the attendees are part of your list, and then you have to add them if you're not. So I kind of left it simple and just put in the subject, the location, the start time, the end time, and of course the body here. Let me show you how we did that, and that'll create a meeting specified in Outlook that matches your meeting here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that macro. And it's a very simple macro. All we've done is dimension the Outlook app, the Outlook item, attendee, contact, and object. And we're going to set the Outlook app to create an Outlook action. This is called late binding, where we're dimensioning it as objects. And this helps us have less issues with libraries. And then the Outlook item as an appointment item. The meeting date is date, and now with sheet 1, we're going to set the meeting date to P5. Of course, that's the meeting date. And then we're going to say with the Outlook meeting, the meeting status is OL meeting, which just sets up our status. Subject of the meeting is in M5. The body is in sheet 1, 09. Location, M7. The meeting date is the meeting date plus the meeting time. That's the start. The end is basically the meeting date plus the start time plus the duration. So it's very simple when we do it. And then we're going to display it. So that's it. That's pretty much it for the add to Outlook. It's very simple, but I wanted to give you that ability to add it to your Outlook or to see. You can build that out and add more features if you want. So we've covered a whole lot in this. We've covered the last two, send before, send after meeting email automation. We've done the automated accept decline through links in emails, print the meeting list and agenda, and add to Outlook in this final Excel meeting schedule part 3. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this series of the meeting scheduler. If you like, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Join us as you like in our group. Of course, we'd love to have you in our Excel for Freelancers group within Facebook. Please like and share this video. It's always appreciated. Thank you so much.